Hello, hello, hello. Let's see here. Hey guys. So, welcome to our first live table talk. So, first of all, I want to say thank you guys for making this page so awesome. It was only created a week and a half ago, and we have close to 300 members. So for that, I am so thankful. Today, we are going to speak on the mental health awareness. Those who have been on the page have noticed that we have a lot of topics. And because this is Mental Health Awareness Month, we decided to make our first discussion about mental health awareness. So with that being said, we have a lot of guests here today. And if you was to look into the mental health topics, you'll see their bios. I'm gonna kind of give you a quick bio on each one because this, platform is actually growing. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce each one of our guests and I'm going to bring them on, and then we're going to give you guys the information that you have been asking for and information to help understand the information that you guys posted. So without further ado, let me go ahead and give you guys a little introduction on our guest. The first guest that I'm going to introduce is Melody Wilson. Melody has her bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's in professional counseling. She's in the process of obtaining her doctorate. Her specialty is sexual violation, and she's awesome, awesome, guys. So I'm going to bring Melody on, and then we're going to introduce our next guest, okay? Here we go. Melody, come on.
Hello.
Hey, is your mic? There you go. There you go. So, while we're getting our guest in, you want to give our viewers some information about yourself?
Okay, well, again, I am Melody Wilson, and
Your mic.
can you hear me? Because yours was a little choppy too.
I'm sorry. I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. You picking me up?
Let's see.
It seems like there's a delay or something.
We got it might be a slight delay. I'm not even sure what's going on, how that is actually. Hit your cam and mic button on the screen and see if that actually helps you. Technical difficulties, guys.
So, and do what for the settings?
See, we hear you when it's yeah, in the settings. Okay. You got it? Let's see.
I don't know. Is there any difference?
It's a little it's off a little bit. Let's see. Now try it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little, but go ahead. It's I think it's delayed. That's all.
Okay. Well, we'll try it. I am Melody Wilson, and currently I am a life coach. I do basic counseling, advocate against sexual violation. And the biggest thing I do like to put out there is that I've been doing my own recovery from sexual violation for the past 14 years now. And I like to put that out there simply because I push others on self-healing and as opposed to having to go to others, especially when you don't have the resources to do so, because I personally believe that all of us, with the exception of some, and we're going to talk about that tonight, have what we need inside of us to live and strive in this world.
Right. Well, that's good. Thank you for being here. And let me go ahead and introduce our next guest. Our next guest is Kwame Knight. He himself has recently obtained his degree in sociology, and he's back in school, right? He's about to go back, and I think he's in there, and he has a plan to help with us in the future as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce Kwame. Can you get on here?
Yeah, am I clear?
Yep, you're clear. Go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Good evening, how everyone doing? I'm Kwame Knight. I recently just got back in school last fall. I'm attending trying to get my LPC in community counseling. A little bit about me, I co-facilitate a substance abuse group. I've been working with kids now in the human resources field overall for about the last 11 years, but I kind of narrowed it down to mental health a little bit. I have kind of a lot of dialogue about it just overall, so I'm excited to just talk right now. Kind of stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I thank you as well for being here. And the next one we're going to actually introduce is Katusha Gray. Katusha Gray takes a different level, a different direction with her therapy. She as well has obtained her degree in which she does it in a holistic way. So let Katusha go ahead and introduce herself as well.
Hi, how are you? I had some technical difficulties over here. So, my name is Katusha Gray. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a certified yoga teacher. I practice in Valley Stream, New York. So I do talk therapy with children, families, adolescents, young adults, and adult women. That's really my specialty. And I really focus more so on a holistic perspective. So I am a yogi. I do practice yoga, and I really do feel the mind and the body is connected. One cannot work with the mind without working with the body. So that's really how I practice. I practice holistically because if we can understand our triggers and our body, we could understand better why we react the way that we do. So
That's
hopefully we'll have more conversation of that. My practice, the name of my practice is Mind Meets Movement Counseling Services, and I'm in Valley Stream, New York.
awesome. Awesome. And thank you as well for being here.
Yes.
And last but not least, we're going to introduce the queen twice over, who used the platform of mental illness and mental health to bring awareness to the young folks. So let's go ahead and introduce Brianna Squire. Brianna, are you there? Where did you go?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Awesome.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brianna. I am the reigning Miss Backupath and Miss New Theta, and I'm actually really excited to talk about mental health. I've been talking about this platform for a while now, especially due to the fact that I've been diagnosed with mild chronic depression. So it's been something that I've been battling and encouraging other people to battle with me, so that way we can work on suicide prevention awareness. I'm also a recent graduate from Old Dominion University, and I am mental health first aid certified, working on my instructor's certificate. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I thank you all for being here. And let's start this conversation off with each one of you. Can you guys give me a definition, your definition of what mental health is? So let's start with Melody.
Okay. Mental health with regard to sexual violation. If you have ever, or anyone that has ever experienced sexual violation, or anyone who supports someone who has ever experienced sexual violation, you understand that it takes a toll on you mentally. It takes a toll on you mentally because when you have that first experience, it's usually the thoughts that you deal with from the onset and those thoughts afterwards that are residual, that carry on, and they become habitual. Okay.
Okay.
I think Katusha could probably agree with me on that. This whole pattern of thinking. When you have when it's habitual, it's that thin thin sheet of myelin that thickens, and it's easy for you to start, but it's hard for you to break those patterns. So when you have those thought patterns that continue from, especially those who have experienced CSA within childhood, and you carry them into adulthood, they start to affect so many different areas of your life. And one of the things that I talk about are those 37 different residual effects that you have the potentiality of experiencing. Experiencing once you had that experience with sexual violation. And on that list, if I'm not mistaken, number 5 is PTSD. A lot of the mental disorders that are in the DSM-5, which is the mental health professional Bible, when you experience sexual violation, a lot of those disorders are on that list. And a lot,
Okay.
and even with PTSD alone, when it comes to flashbacks, night terrors, and things like that, it's a lot of it is, of course, based on the thoughts that you're having and the memories that you're having from that traumatic experience.
Okay.
Another thing too is with the whole thing of not being believed and being shamed and re-victimized, and this whole stigma with mental health, and feeling like you're crazy. Okay, with all
Right.
of these things, not being believed and being shamed, and not being able to come forward with your story, and you're having to deal with these experiences on your own, you're feeling crazy on the inside. You don't want to say something to somebody else because you don't want to look crazy to them, when not realizing, when you don't get help for these issues, then you're actually just making yourself look even more crazy. So when it comes to sexual violation, what a lot of people fail to understand is that when you have people who have become drug addicts and sex addicts, or have gotten to these different things, even when it comes to workaholics and things like that, it's simply because there's this those thoughts. They're trying to dead those thoughts. They don't want to think
Right.
about those things.
Right.
And that's where the different mental, and even when it comes to depression and panic and anxiety and things like that. So when it
Okay.
comes to sexual violation, the experience alone from the onset takes a toll on your mental health. And if you don't get help for those issues, you start having self-defeating behaviors because the way that the brain works, our perception of things create our thoughts. Our thoughts create emotions, which of course influence our behavior and our actions. So if
Right.
you don't get
Right.
help for these issues, and if your mental health is not good, like Katusha said, the mind and the body works together. And when your mind is affected, you have heart problems, you have gastrointestinal
Mhm.
problems, all these different
Mhm.
things. So if you when you have this experience, if you don't get help for these issues, it will definitely affect you
Yeah.
negatively, your mental health
Right.
negatively, to the point that it will negatively affect your life.
Understood. So let's go ahead and let Kwame tell us what your definition of mental health is.
That was great. That was great. I think she pretty much touched up on everything I was going to say for the most part. I think it's just a matter of well-being that you kind of have, like a cognitive, I guess, behavior and emotional standpoint. But I think it was very interesting that she was talking about just kind of getting those perspectives and kind of looking at it from a counseling lens, because most times when people are going through things, it's kind of like prior to getting counseling or prior to even using counseling as a vessel, you kind of have people that go to other people for perspectives. That kind of created a big boiling pot of different things that kind of come into play. So it kind of goes into a way where you feel like you're being counseled, but it's not really a technique to being counseled in that avenue, because counseling comes with a technique, and that technique does not require you to give insight. It requires you to listen and show direction through that insight that is given. It's actually trying to shed light on the problem. So I think when we do give those perspectives from the outside looking in, and it's not in the counseling realm, it kind of send us person in, well, should I do this or shouldn't do this? And then you kind of dealing with that thin line of I told you so, or there you go. So
Right.
kind of when I was looking at it from a substance standpoint, I kind of looked at it a little interesting too, because you kind of have a lot of different stages the way substance is played, because you got substance use, you got substance abuse, and you got substance dependency. So the way that those follow is
Mhm.
substance use is something that you kind of do recreationally, I say, or experimental. Whereas substance abuse is kind of something you use on the daily, kind of something that I don't want to say is a lifestyle, but it's part of your routine. Where dependency kind of follows the avenue where you can't live without. So when those stages kind of hit, I think that's when the mental health kind of gets in, because we
Mm-hmm.
all
Mhm.
we feel like it's a little stronger than others, and it's just more of society that I feel like that plays a role in that, because it's a very thin line when you're going through some things, when you have exceptions on one end that you have expectations on another end, and that's a real thin line. So I just think you kind of live in this survival mode. That's kind of more of like creating that gateway to the illness, versus like when you kind of living to live is more of a curiosity. So that's kind of just my standpoint on it from a social standpoint.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then we have Katusha. What is your definition of mental health?
Well, the way that I look at mental health and a lot of issues related to mental health is trauma, right? Trauma is
Mhm.
this big word, and often people feel like trauma has to be this huge thing, such as sexual abuse and physical abuse, which it is, but when we think about trauma, trauma really is an overwhelming amount of stress that exceeds your ability to cope, right? Which could be anxiety, which could be
Mhm.
depression. It looks like so many different things. So when we talk about trauma, right, it often can be, maybe you had an absentee father,
Mhm.
maybe you had your mom that used to say negative things to you. Maybe you had a brother or a sibling that said negative things to you, right? But thinking of the definition, it's just an overwhelming amount of stress. And that could be a various amount of things because
Mhm.
we're all under stress. We all can be under stress, right? So when we
Right.
think about that, that can trickle down to some disorders or a lot of disorders, such as anxiety
Mhm.
and depression and bipolar and things of that nature. So when I think of mental health, mental illness, I think of trauma. That's like my go-to
Mhm.
word, trauma, because when we unpack it, there is something bigger that's going on with that person.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Right. So,
Absolutely.
Brianna, bring us a update on your definition of mental health.
Well, the experts basically said everything that I had to say. um, However, I would also define mental health as like an abundance of self-awareness, being able to identify when I'm going through these traumatic moments and experiencing these intense emotions, and knowing to myself when I am in a danger zone and need to seek help. So I would just like to conclude, it's just basically an abundance of self-awareness, knowing myself and being able to take charge of my own mental wellness and get the help that I need.
Okay. Well, I also think that mental health has a lot to do with the ability. When you don't have the ability to do the things that we need to do to care for ourselves and care for others, that's when we take mental health into a mental illness stage. And so what we're going to talk about is the definition. We're going to go through what some of you guys had posted on the page and so forth. And one thing I really want to bring to the attention when we speak of mental health is stigma. We all think that mental health, we can see mental health, a mental illness, and we cannot see that. Not everybody who has a mental illness looks crazy. So we're going to go ahead and go into what the stigma of mental health is. And we're going to go ahead and start that one with Katusha. Katusha, can you bring us an update on the stigma of mental health?
Well, I think the stigma has always been there. I think there's
Mhm.
this sort of thing that people create in their mind that there's this crazy bag person that looks like they are, carrying bottles of things. It's the drunken person on the corner. But mental health, as you know, a mental illness could look like us, could look
Mhm.
like me and you. There's this huge stigma in our community specifically, right? In the communities of color, not just with Black people. I'm Caribbean, for sure in in the Caribbean community, 100%, and the Latino community as well, right? There's
Yeah.
this
Mhm.
sense of we don't tell our business. We got to keep it quiet.
Mhm.
No one should know what's going on with us, right? What happens in this house, I grew up like that. What happens in this house stays in this house. And it was all this trauma and craziness and alcoholism and a couple of my aunties had bipolar, and I
Mhm.
remember how much that stifled me not to be able to talk to people about, oh my God, my family is nuts. My family is like bananas and crazy. And on the outside, you would think that everything is okay. And that is literally what is killing us, hiding the
Mhm.
secret, the sense of I can't tell anybody. I don't want to tell anybody. But the reality is the secret alone hurts you far more than disclosing the truth. So that
I
stigma really has to go.
I definitely agree.
Mhm.
I myself have grew up in a household where my aunt, she had a mental illness, but it was not acknowledged as a mental illness. It was pretty much put off as if that's just how she is. And I think we all probably have a family member or know somebody that we put off and label it by their name and their behaviors. And that's not accurate. Uh, Mental health is not a name. You can't sit there and say, "Oh, well, that's John over there. That's how John works," or "That's what Keisha does," and "That's what Kiva does." That's not what mental illness is. Mental illness have names. There's different names and titles for everything that someone is going through. So, and along with that mental illness, sometimes people don't go to they don't go to the doctors because they're not aware that they should, being the fact that we've already labeled it with their names. So what they do is they self-medicate, and they start smoking weed, they start drinking, or even start doing cocaine because that helps numb whatever it is that they cannot control. So that point right there is what a lot of people don't realize, is when you constantly doing something to block an emotion or a feeling, that's because you're suffering from a mental illness. And it doesn't mean that you're crazy. We need to take crazy out of the definition of mental illness, because that already makes people feel like something is wrong with them.
Right.
So when the drugs, the alcohol, when you think somebody has a addiction, maybe instead of accusing them for having an addiction, either offer them counseling, send them to counseling, or even offer them to talk to you. But Kwame, you have a lot of information because you do addiction counseling to the youth, right?
Yeah, and I think now being that I'm working with the youth, I see a lot of the stigma kind of like being an entity more than anything, because there's so many negative connotation with the words and how you use terms. Like even now, like substance abuse, like when you think of abuse, it comes off as a negative connotation word. Like what person that is using substance will want to accept I am abusing substance. So I think it's a big two-way street, and I think for the most part, when it comes to that stigma, it's like I said, who wants to accept that role, and like it comes off as something that, how can I say? I don't want to be too biased, but like you have to live it. You have to live it. I mean, you have to live it, because I know me. Like when the things that I seen in my household from my relatives and XYZ, like they wasn't expressing anything, so it came off to me like, well, if it wasn't on them, I couldn't see it. I didn't do
Right.
televisions. I couldn't read mine. So by the time something happened, it snapped, crackled, and popped. It was too late. So it was so much oppression coming from that. And I started getting into a new environment or a new rhythm of things I wanted. I wasn't able to recognize the cues on a normal level. Like I had went through so much that somebody come to me like, I'm disappointed in you. Like, so what? Like that wasn't, if that's the highest of my consequence, then that I'm okay with that, because the consequence at one point was higher than that. So I look at it in a lot of different ways when you're looking at substance use, substance abuse, or any type of abuse, because you have some kids that go to school and they're living a different lifestyle at home. So some of that stuff that go into school is a safe haven, and the only consequence that you really can use some of those reinforcers. I don't want the consequence, but is the parents or the household. Because I know for me, anything that didn't revolve suspension or my parents getting called home, it wasn't enough until I knew that my actions were going to be reported to authority that was going to do something that I didn't like, if you follow my dream. So I think,
Right.
so when I got to a point where I knew that I had to express it, I didn't really know if it was something I had anxiety with or something I had depression with, because I it had molded me. It was something that nurtured me. You know what I'm saying? So it was like everything now is kind of like I'm always in survival mode, I guess I can say. It's like it comes, it's so urgent to me, so it makes me so much more precise. And I don't want to say it's from a privileged standpoint, but it's just a thing of have nots. And I think when you come from a survival standpoint of life and just that social lifestyle, it is different. You don't really see help. You see find a way. So the
Right.
community, the most that we have is church. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's praying. That's praying. That's praying. But after I pray, my bills are still due tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
Uh-huh.
I feel back then, God said, all right, if I'm overdue, God, Tuesday we're gonna see what's next. Uh,
Mhm.
People don't know how to gear that into putting their emotion into something they can't see,
Right.
especially.
Right.
So I think when leading on different things, and I really don't want to talk about substance or too much because man, addiction can go so many ways, man. Like you
Mhm.
use drugs, they use food. You got people
Mhm.
Absolutely.
they use the gym. You got people
Absolutely.
video games.
Absolutely.
So many different expressions, man, and so many outlets to really abusing something, So I guess when you just wear it thin, I guess it just kind of finds something different. So, for example, if I did have an obsession with eating, and that was my way of coping with something, at some point eating wouldn't be enough. The meals I'm eating, so I'm either going to eat more or I'm gonna go to the next entity that's feeling fully.
For fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Which is addiction. Addiction is a form of mental health issues.
Right.
And that could be the
Mhm.
gamut of everything that you just said: eating, sex, the
Video
gym,
games.
all of
Yeah.
them, all of that.
Mm.
You did bring up something that was interesting to me because you recently graduated, and Brianna was a resident assistant in her college. So, Brianna, can you kind of give us information about the students in regards to mental illness and mental health?
Sure. In my 4 years, and I was an RA, a resident assistant for 3 of them, I had dealt with 12 suicide cases and things that involved mental health issues. Now, with that being said, I realized that more people are actually willing to seek help. They're showing these signs because they want to be helped. They want someone to notice. This is them literally like asking, screaming to the top of their lungs, hey, I need help. Please help me. And I was actually one of those resident assistants who was really engaged with my students. Well, they're not my students, but my residents of the buildings that I
Right.
had lived in. And I would see these signs. I would try to be like, hey, can you get out your room? Did you go to class today? I would ask these questions because I realized that a lot of them were struggling a little bit, from being far from home, never like been this far away from their family before, or having this much freedom and not knowing how to react to it. And on the college campus, I'm not saying that my campus in particular, but there is that rape culture. So
Mhm.
people who have been sexually assaulted, we have abundance of resources on our campus. However, people were more afraid to say something because it could be like the most popular dude or someone who's well
Mhm.
liked and well known in campus, and they felt like if they spoke up, they would get targeted and basically harassed or something of that issue. Nobody would believe them. So like for people who, I guess since I recently graduated, I've just realized that a lot of people are willing to seek that help. They just want someone to like walk with them to the counseling's office or walk with them and just talk with them rather than just seeking the help on their own. It's always, they just need that extra push, in my opinion, so that way they can go get the help that they need.
Mhm.
Well, that's awesome. That's good that you was able to be an extra
Mhm.
hand because a lot of times people don't take their jobs that seriously and they'll just do what the bare minimum and not really go into it. So did you feel like what you've been through personally helped you be a better RA for these students?
Um, I want to say yes. When I was my freshman year, and there was like all these issues that I was having. That I've been there. I've been in their shoes where you can potentially be sexually assaulted and not wanting to speak up. So therefore, it's kind of like I can use my experiences to connect with people because I really do want to connect with people. I've just felt as though I struggle with that a little bit because I can come out very cold, but that's me trying to protect myself. Once I realize that once I open up and people can connect with me, that's when I'm able to like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be so hard and be a little bit more vulnerable. So that's my strength. My vulnerability is my strength, and therefore I'm capable of connecting with those individuals. I do think that my personal experiences, because I always wanted someone to reach out to me to check on me to see if I was okay. So doing that, I feel like because that's what I wanted, that's what I did for others.
Awesome. Awesome. And when you speak of sexual, that's what A lot of people don't realize that college campuses do have a lot of sexual predators, a lot of,
Mhm.
and that stigma right there alone, when these people graduate, that is something that is stuck with them on day to day. That affects their lives in so many ways because they sometimes don't tell nobody, what they're going through. And as soon as they get out, they're not active in life, and nobody understands why. They automatically want to blame it on them, being out of school and not being with their friends, creating an excuse for their behaviors instead of asking more questions. Melody, you got
Mhm.
input on the sexual violation. How would you think that you can help those people out there that does not speak up regarding sexual violations?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of the question.
No, I was just asking, what do you think, or what can you provide as far as those that are experiencing sexual violations on the college campus and not saying anything? How would you advise anyone to come out and speak up on what they're experiencing regarding sexual violations?
Um, Having that experience is hard, and processing it alone is just hard enough. And I always tell people, do try to find someone else to process it with you, because when you do try to process it alone, that's when all these thoughts go all over the place. But that's not always the easiest thing to do, to find someone that you feel like you can trust. I mean, you have, young girls who go tell their mothers. It, might have been a boyfriend,
Mhm.
father, something like that. And like I said, hard because they're not being believed. But what I do know is a lot on the college campuses. And Brianna, you can tell me if I'm wrong, especially with Title IX. There is a lot of resources. And my daughter, who's at Pembroke University of Pembroke now, also, she was a part of the sexual assault coalition that they had on campus. And there is the support there, because a lot of the reason, I always say that silence is the predominance for our rape culture.
Mhm.
Okay, we are suffered into silence. We need to create a safe environment for victims and survivors to feel like that they can come out and tell their stories and disclose. Underreporting is probably has the highest statistics of all the statistics, but they can't give you those statistics because they are so high, and people are not reporting, or they're recanting their stories. So for someone who has already had that experience, and I hate to sidetrack, there are so many people who have not even recognized they have had a sexually violating experience.
Mhm.
And a prime example will be what just happened with Boosie, the rapper Boosie Badass, where he hired women or women to give oral sex to his 12 and 13-year-old sons and
What?
nephews.
I
We look at
didn't know
D-Ray,
that.
who talked about his
Yes,
experience. We
girl.
look at Brown. Yeah, and Chris Brown, who was also, I think, violated by a babysitter. And the biggest example is R. Kelly. R. Kelly was raped and molested as a child by family members, by um, someone in the neighborhood. And look what type of deviant it made him into. You understand? So if we don't create these supportive environments, the silence is going to continue to be there. For anyone who has already had that experience, process that experience and accept, for one, that it has happened to you. If you are not sure that you have had an experience, talk to a professional, talk to the sexual assault groups, because they're going to have a wealth of resources for you. The crisis hotlines, all of those, you can talk to someone and they can let you know. That's why sexual violation is my personal term. You're probably not going to hear it too many places. I know when I started the doctoral program, I went looking for it, because I don't like the fact that they have so many different terms for being violated. Okay,
Right.
you have sexual harassment, sexual assault, molestation. And it confuses people. I always talk about passive abuse. I experienced a lot of passive abuse after being raped, young like I did, because I didn't have boundaries.
Mhm.
So you know how when someone approaches you and you have that nervous laughter and you don't know how to stop someone. So because you don't know how to stop them, you just let them go along with it. So
Mhm.
before you know it, you've either been violated or you've actually been raped.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't even know that they've experienced violation in that manner. You have people with intimate partner violence, date rape, who are married, who don't know that just because you're married to a person does not give them right to your body. You can always say no.
Yep.
You understand? So the one thing is accepting or even understanding that you've had that experience, because acceptance is hard. A lot of people can't move on to the next step because you can't accept what has happened to you. You understand? So find somebody that you feel comfortable and safe enough with. And if you start out with someone who is not making you feel comfortable in the least, stop. Go to someone else. If you choose to find a professional, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a psychotherapist, whether it's a life coach, because all of them have different ways that they handle their clients. But if you go to find you one that you're comfortable with. With regard to sexual violation, find you someone who has dealt with sexual violation, because there's a lot of professionals out here who have not, whether it's in the legal system or, in the court system, all of that. You have victims who are afraid to come out because of how they're handled once they do, from the process of reporting to having the rape kits done, how they're talked to in these nurses' offices and in the doctor's office, and then they have to be questioned when it comes to the legal system going forward. That's why a lot of them recant their stories. That's why we even have a percentage of women or people who lie about rape. Women who recant their stories, their percentages of lying goes into that percentage. So again, find someone, but even if it's a professional, find someone to process those thoughts. Next, understand your situation to see if this is something I want to take further, because understanding my own experience and where I've come to now, I'm really quick to say report, report, report. Everybody's not in the position to report because of the ramifications that come with it, whether it's re-victimization or whether it's isolation from family, friends, co-workers or whatever. Everybody is not in that position to say, you know what, let's fight this fight. I'm going to report. So you have to understand the situation that you're in. If you decide that you're going to report, then you have to understand, are you ready for this fight? If you decide that you're not, then you have to understand that, okay, I got to get my mental health intact.
Right.
Because you can be that person. Because when it happened to me for years, I thought I was okay. I was superwoman until I realized that everything was spiraling out of control. It wasn't until I saw that list of 37 different residual effects. And that's when I was like, oh my God, this is me. I thought it was a blueprint of my life. I'm crazy. That was the whole stigma. Okay. Right. I'm crazy. I didn't want to tell nobody nothing, because now everybody's going to think I am freaking crazy. And because I never recognized that stuff, all of a sudden I'm realizing I don't even know how crazy I've already been looking to everybody else.
Do you think that it's when you do acknowledge or even tell someone, it's hard to tell because it's hard to be believable when somebody identify that they may have been sexually, assaulted? Like, the reason why so many people hold back from telling is because it's hard for it to be believable.
Yeah, I do believe that, because if you have not had that experience, it is hard to believe. And then you have those who have been assaulted by someone that they know or someone that someone else know. And then if you care about that person, look at the R. Kellys, the Bill Cosbys and all of that. If you like them, then if you don't want to believe that that person that you like would do something like that. And then you got this whole cognitive dissonance going on, because you got this person that you love and like, and this other person that you love and like that's saying this about this person, and you just don't want to accept it. Then you have mothers out here who are just trying to hold on to a man.
Oh, now that right there is
their daughters up and preparing their daughters. Yes, preparing their daughters for these men.
That is definitely a whole nother table talk, because at that point right there, we could go even deeper and deeper and deeper on that. But I've noticed on one of our posts, somebody had identified that we are I don't want to say regular people, because people with mental illnesses and mental health are regular people as well. They just can't control their thoughts. And I think someone had posted on our page that, people can control it. They don't have to behave this way. But I do believe that if it was controllable, they really would control it. It wouldn't be considered a mental illness.
Right.
Someone had asked the question of, the abuse, the, if self-medicating, if it works, then what then? I personally feel like if it's working, it's only covering up the under problem. And some people find that that's all they need is just to cover it up.
Yeah.
So let's speak more on that,
And it's
because
only temporary.
It's only temporary.
and then you constantly got to keep covering up because you don't want to face what it is that you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
And it could be with everything. I mean, I've done a thesis on video game playing. I had, nephews, sons constantly playing video games. And I thought it was a mental illness, like they were suffering from something. It comes to find out they just really do like playing video games. But that, with me doing the research, I was like, oh my God, these kids that are really like, and it dehumanizes them, especially the type of video games that they have. And you see all of these kids who take these video games and then go and shoot up schools. Not saying that the video game is doing it, it's the mental illness behind the video game playing and the thought that they can do what their character in video games are doing. You see, so it is, every addiction has a underlying issue, as we stated before. But when you take drugs and alcohol to cover it up and you think that it's working, it really truly is not working, because you still got that underlying issue.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're going to come down. You're going to, whatever you're using, you're going to come down off of it, and it's going to hit you in some area. And what you're going to do, you're going to be grabbing for it. But what happens when you grab for that and it's not there?
Right. But I also want to add in that there's this stigma, which you were saying earlier, about why can't they just stop? They can't stop, right? They have a chemical imbalance in their brain.
Right.
And that is something that they cannot prevent. Your brain, everybody's brain is differently. The way that my brain works, the way that your brain works, everybody's brain is wired differently. And sometimes there are just some people who are born this way or develop this way that has a chemical imbalance.
Right.
If you have a chemical imbalance, you may need something like medication or psychotherapy or other holistic methods to keep you grounded and centered so it doesn't spiral into the whatever you have. So people can't stop. The notion of just saying, why can't you just stop being crazy? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Definitely.
And one thing I want one thing that I did want to go ahead. Am I cutting somebody off? I feel like I'm cutting somebody off.
I think it's a lag. It's a lag.
Okay. One thing that I did want to say that we were talking about amongst ourselves yesterday is that all of us deal with mental illness in some form. It's just that it's those who actually go into mental illness are dealing with it at a heightened level. We all go through some form of depression. We all go through, little anxiety and things like that. It's just that when it becomes heightened to a certain level, that it's going into that mental illness. And what I do want to say before I forget this, I think it is so awesome that Brianna, so young, is into mental health awareness, bringing other young, I want to say youngins, bringing other youngins into the fold, because it is so important at a young age to be aware of your mental health. Because I always say that children who are hurt are just adults who grow up and hurt people, and it's simply because they haven't dealt with those issues, like Katusha was talking about, coping mechanisms. There's a lot of children who grow into depression because they watched how their parents cope. They might have had a mom who was depressed all the time, and next thing you know, they grow and they're doing the exact same thing. So it's like a lot of times we kind of like start out here and grow into this because we don't look at our own issues. We don't self-reflect.
Now that right there is the honest truth. One of our guests had asked, what about learned behavior? Can learned behavior be a part of mental health or mental illness?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that, because like, if I learn something and it meets my satisfaction, how can the outside source say it's wrong? And I think that with the whole R. Kelly thing that Melanie was saying earlier, or I think it was Larisha, I think it was interesting because when R. Kelly went through that, it got to a point where, I don't know if it's the truth, but was that a normal for him? Was that an outlet? Was that a vessel for him? And I mean, it's so interesting because though we have tests and different variables that can kind of like say if we have a disorder, can you really say I have a disorder? Because something that I may weigh at a 5, you may weigh at a 10. Our
Right.
circumstances and our lifestyles may vary on how we carry those burdens. So does
Mhm.
that mean that I may be depressed because I feel mild at a 5, but you feel the same thing, same situation at
Right.
a, like how can we measure that part of it? It's so many different avenues when you come about perspectives and lifestyles because, like you said, what makes somebody go may not make the next person stop. And
Yeah.
it's
Right.
your patterns, and I don't want to say it's not fair, but like, how can you say that something isn't exactly normal? Like, how can you? What exactly is the measurement of normal? When you look at the word disorder, if you break it down, that means not in order. Like, how can you say my mental is not in order? You know,
Right.
and I understand
You
that
don't know any difference.
at some point of our mental, we do kind of come off and we have this feeling like oppression, but yeah, everybody hits a threshold. Like, who doesn't get tired?
Mhm.
And I think for adults, it comes to a point where we do feel this thing, like we feel like we're superheroes. And I never forget it when like a day before I turned 21, like I just felt like it was so many things that didn't have in check. There was so many things I wanted to have a line. And I really sat and I was like, I'm not Superman. Like, I'm only human. Like, it was so many things that I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to line up or accept. It was kind of like, man, I got to be human. So when it came time for me to reflect on a scale where I did feel things, it was like I was a rookie to it. The whole time I've lived 20 years of life. So I think from that avenue, like when we're adults, we got to be able to acknowledge it before we accept it, because we carry those small burdens as our victories. You know, we live through that. So, and I think for the adolescents or younger youth anyway, you just got to be mindful of the vessel that you're serving, and it starts in the house. Knowing what your kids are watching, knowing what games you're playing, knowing what's going on in the life
Mhm.
of school outside.
Right.
Because I mean, we really break it down. What kids are in school 70 hours a day, and then they come home, spend time with the family, another 6 to 7 hours by the time bedtime hit, and they're asleep for the second half of the day. So as a parent and a lifestyle of raising a kid, you may only have what 6 to 8 hours a day to really spend time, and that may vary on your kid's lifestyle. They want to play a sport, they may have friends. So there's a lot of different ways you have to make sure connection with the kid and make sure that upbringing is rooted so that when they see no warning signs, they know it as warning signs, not as something that creates a curiosity.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also, I just want to say something really quickly about learned behavior. Think about when we grow up, right? When we have kids or when we were kids, right? There's this notion that we are not supposed to really pay attention to kids and their emotions, right? So when a
Mhm.
kid says something like, I'm depressed, we'll say something like, what you got to be depressed about? You got this house and you got this roof over your head. I work these 2 jobs
Mhm.
for you, and we just go in on these kids, which says to a kid, damn, if
Mhm.
I can't express how I feel to my parent, then it's best that I don't say anything at all. And
Right.
Right.
so what happens is then the kid grows up unconsciously hiding how they really feel, right?
Mhm.
Then they grow up thinking, I can't express myself about
Yep.
feelings because this is
Right,
what I learned. And
Right.
this is part of the problem. So the notion that kids shouldn't feel sad, kids shouldn't feel anxious, we got to let that go. We got to let that go. A kid is allowed to feel whatever they should feel, and
Mhm.
we should be there as their parent. They're part of their team to support
Right.
them. It shouldn't be a shutdown. It should be, baby, tell me why you feeling anxious today. Why you nervous? What's going on?
Right.
Instead of
Mhm.
the
And
shutdown.
that's where I'm sorry to cut you off. And that's where a lot of the mental illness come from. Unexpressed
Totally. Totally.
Mhm.
unexpressed emotions. What
Especially in
and
Totally.
the
you know,
black household.
when you talk about trauma, trauma is going through hurricane season and losing everything you have.
Yep.
You understand? And so you just totally hit the nail on the head with that right there. Unexpressed emotions from trauma is what leads to mental illness. And taking care of that, being aware of that, and understanding that is what Brianna is promoting, which is mental health.
Right. That is so right. You know, we had one more question in which one of our guests was asking organic mental illness, or what is that? What was that question? Give me a second. It
Okay.
stated, um, let's see here. Good Lord. I apologize, guys. So many people was hitting me up at the same time. What about organic mental disorders? Anybody want to speak on that?
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what it means either. I think it's something that we've already spoke on, which is something I don't know if it's like natural. What is it? Nature versus nurture. But we
Um,
spoke on the nurture part, but there is people that are born. I'm assuming that that's what it is. Born with
Okay,
disability.
I found the definition if you want me to read it to you really quick.
Right ahead.
It says are disturbances that may be caused by injury or disease affecting brain tissues, as well as by chemical or hormonal abnormalities, exposure to toxic materials, neurological impairments, or abnormal changes associated with aging can also cause these disorders.
So pretty
Okay.
much all what we was talking about, how
Right.
it could be a chemical
Yeah.
imbalance, pretty much everything that we were saying.
Okay, so while we're about to wrap it up, I want you guys to provide us individually a solution, and also the signs that people need to be aware of. So we're gonna go ahead and start with you, Q.
all
What you
right.
got?
I'm gonna go on two levels. I'm gonna start on a level for the youth, and then I'm gonna go with a level for adults. I think I had touched on it, like I last said. As far as the kids, parents, we just have to be more. Well, not we, not parents, but we just have to be more mindful as adults, like what exactly our kids are going through in their day life, and the kid may not be able to exactly express it. So the having that observation or having those connections, like with the teacher or with the counselor, or the person that each life makes us there available to see the same thing that you may see. Like I said, it's only so much time that you get with a child before they get their own time, right? So just making sure early that upbringing is coming, that all of the folks, their umbrellas are the same net. And like I said, just as far as adults, knowledge, and accept. It's one thing to accept it, but it's a whole other thing.
Q, you're breaking up. We really can't hear you. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to ask you to repeat yourself. I know it was a lot that you said, so we don't want you to. I hope
Yes,
you remember what you
please.
said, because we need you to repeat that, because it's definitely.
Yeah, what am I here? Can you hear me clearly
Yeah,
now?
there you go. That's much better.
Oh, but like I was saying, like, what part did y'all miss? Did y'all hear the whole part for the youth? Or you want me to start?
No, we didn't
You're
hear
gonna need
it.
to start over.
All right.
Give us a rewind.
So like
Rewind.
as far as the kids, we just have to make sure that we're doing everything to make sure opposed to
I
kids.
think
Oh, there it is
I'm sorry to
again.
cut you off again. You might need to stop moving, because I think that that's what's causing your
Yeah.
voices to go in and out. Because as soon as we see you moving, I think we can't hear you. So I apologize for interrupting you again, but we wasn't hearing that again. And we know you got some nuggets that you want to drop on us.
Oh no, but like I said, like as far for the kids, as parents and adults or any type of role model support figure in the kids' life, we just got to make sure that we mount for those interactions on and outside of our school. There's a lot that goes on in a kid's mind that a kid don't even know how to express. We see kids cry at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, and kids are still trying to find out a way to express themselves. But sometimes it's just if you this, he needs this, he needs that, and every time that need that you may see, it may not be the same thing. But they need that you need to observe that child's lifestyle a little more to see if it's a different type of route, a different type of intervention to help that. And I think as far as the adults, like I said, just making sure their acknowledgement aligns with their acceptance, because it's one thing to know that something is going on, but it's a whole other thing to see it. So I think just making sure that you have an understanding of exactly what's going on, and making sure that you go to the right resources. Like I'm saying, everybody can't counsel, because it's not a counselor's goal to give opinion, it's to give insight. So I think
Right.
knowing how to help and how to support and assist is good, and just grow that rapport with your support system, because you have to have somebody you can trust. Nobody wants to be quite alone.
Right, right. And we're gonna go ahead and ask Brianna, what do you have as a form of a solution?
Well, solution is a big word, I would say,
Mhm.
because mental illness is most of them are not curable. So there's not necessarily any solutions for real, but for a way to deal with the trauma and the intense emotions that you do feel due to mental illness, I do recommend keeping a journal or writing down during those intense
Mhm.
emotions. I know that works for me, as well as utilize your resources. So if you have that access to a counselor and or speaking to a life coach or any of those individuals, any individuals here that specialize in that, I recommend speaking to them and really utilizing those resources that are available to you, finding someone that you are comfortable with to talk to them about these issues and stuff that you're feeling, because your emotions do matter and you are enough and you're never alone. So,
Okay.
but there's
I,
also, Ooh,
I'm sorry.
okay, never mind. I'm so sorry.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
For those who want to help those who are in those situations, though, I do recommend getting mental health first aid certified. It's an 8-hour course, and you basically get trained to assess the risk of suicide and self-harm, and you can give and retain information, as well as insurance, and encouraging those to seek professional help. So I do recommend that as well if you want to be on the opposite end of that and help individuals that you see that need this type of help. So.
That's awesome. And that's actually what I was going to have you reiterate about because we spoke on that last night. Um, Miss Katusha, what do you have? And everybody has been hitting me up. I'm going to let you know right now. They want to know the yoga. They want to know
Mhm.
how to interact yoga
Yeah.
with
Yes.
counseling. So,
Okay,
floor is
well,
yours.
first of all, not many counselors do that. So that's
Right.
number one. That's sort of a specialty area. It's either yoga or it's either psychotherapy. So
Mhm.
I'm kind of like in a unique sort of niche, right? And I'm a woman of color. Back to what I was original, what was the original question about solutions? I like what Brianna said. Mental health and having anxiety, depression, or whatever you might have, it doesn't go away. It's something that stays
Mhm.
with you for the rest of your life, right? It is. It's just what it is. Going to therapy, I'm going to push therapy all day because that's just what I do. And I think that it
Mhm.
is the best since I don't know what. That's just me. And that's just me being a therapist. A therapist is good for you because the therapist helps you unpack things, right? It's like going away on a long, big trip. And in this trip, we have this huge suitcase and we unpack the suitcase. We kind of figure out why you move the way that you move. Why are you anxious? Where does this come from? What does this remind you of? Taking it a step further with yoga, there is this sort of negative condensation when it comes to yoga because people think it's skinny white girls because that's what you see. That's what you
Mhm.
see.
Right.
Skinny white girls doing yoga and
Right.
hands on top of their head. No offense to the white community that is watching, but unfortunately, that is the stigma with our
Mhm.
community. But yoga, in my opinion, when we have these issues, it's in our tissues. It's literally
Yes.
inside of our tissues, literally. You feel it in your body, you feel it in your mind. Your body is stiff, your stomach is tight, your head is always hurting all the time. Sometimes you have all these thoughts, you have all these irrational thoughts that's trickle down all the way to your body, and your body becomes tight. When we utilize yoga and we're doing breathing, right? Like taking a deep breath in and exhaling it out. Breathing sends a signal to the brain, and it
Mhm.
says to the brain, it's okay. You can relax, right? And
Right.
so eventually you start relaxing. Eventually you start coming down. And that is why yoga is important. When we do work like the poses, we call that the asanas, which is actually the poses. It opens up the body. Because we've experienced this trauma, these mental health issues, our body is tight and stiff. The movement allows the body to open up and free up the body. So, like
Mhm.
I said earlier, the mind body is
Mhm.
connected. We
Oh,
cannot work with one part without working with the other part. So, I would advise people to start with breathing, learning how to breathe, learning how to sit in silence, learning how to sit in those thoughts. If those thoughts are too uncomfortable and you cannot sit with it, then seek a therapist to help you unpack that,
Mhm.
right? You could find yoga classes online on YouTube. You can hire people to do private online lessons to you. When the world opened up, I do yoga in my office, and it really helps with opening up the body.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. And while you were saying that, I was breathing and I thought that I was about to go in a trance myself. Your voice alone is like, oh,
I
okay.
know, right? It just
Imagine
relaxes.
all of the people that
Calming.
you're counseling, they probably like, oh, wait.
Yes,
I'm back here.
yes, yes, yes.
I thank you. I need to get back into yoga. I used to do yoga a while back, and then we're not going to talk about that right now.
Yeah. And I always tell people, don't let going into the yoga studio when the world opens back up intimidate you because you're the only person of color. I am practically always the only person of color there, and I don't give two damns because I deserve to be there too.
Exactly. I agree with you 110%.
And consequently, a lot of women who have And consequently, a lot of women who have experienced sexual violation have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
Oh, wow. That's interesting because
that's what I said. It's in our tissues. It's literally inside our body. It's held in our body. And the only way to get it out is to release it out.
That's awesome. That's good to know. I used to work for a fertility. It's okay. But that was like one of the main reasons why a lot of women of color was not capable of obtaining a pregnancy. So that brought a lot to okay, Frank. My daughter, I'm sorry. But that brought a lot to the table for me because I would never have thought about putting one and one together to make two to identify a violation related to a illness, which then relates to pregnancy, and then that makes it even worse on a person as far as depression goes, because now something that they had no control over in their past has affected their future, and now they can't obtain a pregnancy. So that's like a depression on top of depression on top of depression. So that is very interesting. That seems to might be another topic at hand that we may need to speak on. So I was about to go right back to you, Melody, because we need you to.
Well, studies have shown that we carry trauma through DNA. Studies have shown that we carry trauma through DNA. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dr. Joyce DeGruy, but she talks about post-traumatic slave syndrome. So, we carry trauma through our DNA. So if you think about women who are pregnant, and they're in toxic relationships, arguing with the partner, and then the baby comes out, with some type of nervousness and things like that. So we have to be cognizant, about mental health, even when we're bringing lives into the world.
This is so true. So you see how mental health is associated with a lot of things that we all go through. I myself would advise people when you're feeling some kind of way. I've on our page, I've created a mentorship because sometimes it can be just the little things that you just want to get off your chest before they build up to higher things. And anyone on the page can actually be a mentor or mentee. And it's a private conversation that they can have within their DM with their mentor. And if they want to share phone numbers or what have you, they can do that. But we're all here for each other. This platform is not just for, to talk about relationships. It's not only just to talk about, mental health. This platform that I have created is actually for these conversations and for us to put ourselves out there to help each other, because I do believe that each one teaches one, and we all here have some form of knowledge and experience that we can help with. Now, when it comes to a person that needing more than what you can offer, such as a conversation, then you might need to refer them to get, professional help. Just to let you guys know, and also go according to what Q have also stated, counselors cannot provide you answers. We do not provide answers. What we do is help you see a different outcome, a different way of thinking. A lot of times people think that you need to seek counseling just so they can tell you what to do with life. That's not what counseling is about. Also,
Mhm.
there's a difference between
Right.
psychology and psychiatry.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
psychiatry is
Yes.
when you can provide medication, and a lot of times
Mhm.
you're seeing a counselor or a psychologist and they feel that medication is needed, they will refer you out because they don't have the ability to provide you medication. A lot of our conversations or our viewers was speaking on medication, self-medicating, and all of that. I'm not going to say yay or nay because that's not the field that I'm in. But if you feel that you have to do those self-medicate on a regular basis, I do believe that that's the time when you definitely need to
Mhm.
seek help. And it's not saying that
Mhm.
you need to seek help to stop, because a lot of people enjoy smoking weed. They just made it legal here in Virginia. I'm not promoting it, but I'm just saying some people enjoy smoking weed, and it's a plant. It grows from the land. I'm quoting Cat Williams, but if you smoking it to cover up or drinking to cover
Mhm.
up something, and you constantly doing it, and you can't, and let's say you can't stop. There is a lot of people who have been drinking and they've been trying to stop. There is an underlying issue. There is an underlying issue, and that issue needs to be addressed. And if you can't address that issue, all you're doing is harming those around you, your family, and yourself. So if you're not going to do it for yourself, at least go and do it for your family, and it will lead you to yourself, honestly. So with that, guys, I just want to say I thank you guys because this was an awesome. I can speak on this topic all day
Yeah. Can I
long.
just say one more thing? I just want to say if people are seeking therapists, and the reason why a lot of people that look like us do not want to seek therapists is because they want someone that looks like us, right? And I get it. That's 90% of the people that I treat that look like us. So I would advise looking on sites like Therapy for Black Girls. That's a really good site. They're all predominantly women of color. Look at Therapy for Black Men. That's another really good site. Look at Good Therapy. That's another good site where it's all clinicians of color. And look at Psychology Today and start looking at who you want to treat you.
That and that right there is the God honest truth. All that information we're going to put into a file onto the page. I'm not going to say right away. Give us some time so we can create that file for you. And if you want to speak to or have any questions in regards to any of our guests today, on their bio page, you can inquire there, or they'll reach out to them and they'll reach out to you. We are still going to be going on to this topic, even though we're not doing it live. So I thank you all for attendance, and I thank you guys for being on our first live. And if you guys have any topics that you really want to talk about on live, please DM me and we'll get it together, because we're going to try to do this every Saturday at the same time. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close out, and everybody go ahead and say your goodbyes. Okay,
Have a
Bye.
bye.